Hey, welcome back, everybody. Um, just want to give you another update as I want to tell you the ups and downs that I've been having with the RO Buddy from Aqualife, 50 gallons per hour or whatever. Um, Enhancements and changes that I made, okay, and the ups and downs. Let's get to I think in the update number two, I told you I upgraded this from a 4 stage to a 7 stage now with two RO membranes, right? Two carbon blocks, one sediment filter, and two DIs. And what this does is it increases water output while decreasing wastewater. So instead of the 3 to 1, you probably get one for one. The reason why I have two carbon um, stages is because I want to be sure that chlorine is filtered out because, you know, chlorine kills shrimps and I'd rather not have that, right? I can do what other people say and use some prime in it, but I don't even feel like doing that. Um, Another thing I added is two DIs. That way, while one DI starts to decrease in its use, the other one starts to catch it, and I can just swap it around when I replace the DI, the depleted DI resin with a new one, and I'll just move the second one over here and install a new one there. I also installed a flush valve. Um, I got this from Aqualife. I think I said it in the last video, um, but I did that. Okay, so other enhancements that I did. Um, when you get new membranes and you have to flush things, right? You don't want to keep that water and you don't want it to run down through the, you don't want it to run it through the DI resins and deplete it faster. So I installed a three-way valve here, and that way when I have to flush or get rid of flush the new RO membranes when I get them for 30 minutes, I send that water not to my RO bucket, my barrel, but down the sink. Okay, it bypasses the DI and sends the water that went through the RO membranes, the carbon blocks, and the sediment filter right down the drain when I replace the RO membranes. I also might be using it because I hear that when you first start up the unit for production, the first 30 minutes may not be useful. I don't know if you hear that, but that was the check valve whining. I don't know why it still does that, but it's intermittent. Um, but yeah, I heard that you shouldn't use the first 10 minutes or 5 minutes of the product water that's created. Um, I don't know. I'll have to look into it, but I'm planning to I'm planning to flush the RO membranes for about 5 minutes every time I start to make production water. So this comes in handy so that you don't deplete DI resin because that is about each tube of that from Aqualife is about like $23 from Amazon. Um, Another thing I installed. Um, so actually, before I do that, I tell you that. Let me give you some context on what I've been having a problem with. I've been having a problem with um, TDS, specifically high TDS coming out of the RO membranes prior to going into the DI, which then brings it down to zero. So I have a pressure about like 50 psi's out of the faucet, and my my product water coming out of the RO membranes was coming in at about 25 to 28 TDS prior to going into the DI resins, which will then bring it down to zero. That is a lot. That is not even that is not even 98% that the Aqualife says their RO membranes do. Um, so I started to look into what can cause that, right? And the first thing I did was I decided to get a booster pump, right? And when you get a booster pump, you also want to get a PSI meter. So I have a PSI meter, right here. Right now, it's currently reading at about close to 80, about 75 to 80. Had to dial that in, but I got a booster pump from Aquatic um, Life, Aquatic, right? This is the CCP or the CDP 6800. Regardless, I'll link it to the bottom. But I bought this on Amazon. At first, I got the the 8800, but that sucker was just way too powerful for the RO Buddy. It was the adjustment screw came out, and I couldn't adjust it any lower down to 80. You kind of want to go slightly, you want to be able to go below 80 because sometimes these units, the fittings can't hold the pressure. So you need to be able to dial it down even further, right? So it was making so much noise. I mean, I could hear it upstairs. I'm in the basement, right, in the laundry room. I could hear it upstairs knocking, and it would basically shake like crazy, the unit itself. So I went on Amazon and I did some looking on their webs on Aquatech's website about you know another a lower unit, and I came upon the 6800, and just like me, there was another guy on Amazon who had an 8800 and said it was making so much noise that he tried this one, and it was much quieter. I agree with him. This thing doesn't shake. What shakes is the line that's coming out from the unit into the RO. That shakes, but not the unit itself. That's okay. I can live with that, right? It doesn't make that much noise. I don't hear it upstairs. So you want to get the 6800 if you are using the Aqua Buddy, 50 gallon, um, 50 gallon per hour. If you're using the 100, if you have the 100 gallon per hour, I would go with the 8800. Okay, because the flow restrictor is different. Okay, so I put that in. I dialed it into about 75 to 80 psi, and I was still getting 25 to 28 TDS out of the membrane prior to the DI resin. So one other thing I was going to do that I've been hearing about, right, on the BRS TV YouTube channel, right, and I linked that in the last RO update. I think RO update number 2. But what they said was you want to use the best RO membranes out there. And the best RO membranes out there are the Dow or slash DuPont um, Flimtech RO membranes. And so I found two that were rated for 50 gallons per hour. They're hard to find because most of them out there are 75 to 100 or 150. But they're really hard to find, but you can find them. And I'll link it to the description below. But the seller is selling authentic, certified ones because I checked it with the app from Dow, and it's authentic. So I hooked it up. I replaced both the membranes that came with these units, the Aqualife ones, with the Dow, with the pressure dialed in at about 75 to 80. I am now getting 5 TDS coming out of the RO membrane with the TDS out of the faucet at about 247 TDS. So I'm out of my faucet. into the booster pump, right, at 75 to 80 psi. The TDS is 247 TDS, right? Going into the oral membranes, coming out of the oral membranes prior to the resins, I now have 5 TDS. That is within the 98% range that I was looking for. I was just burning through resins like crazy. If you look at this one right here, that was just from one use prior to me switching to the RO, the Dow slash DuPont membranes. You definitely want to buy the Dow slash DuPont FlimTech membranes. Okay, and I'll link it below. And these are certified. Okay, because I checked with the DuPont app. Okay. Other than that, I am happy I did it. Oh, also with the booster pump comes the pressure sensor. Okay, let me talk about this sucker a bit, because this, if you're using a auto shutoff valve and you have this, okay, it will not work without adjusting that. I know they tell you not to touch it, right? To leave it alone, right? But you have to adjust it. Otherwise, these two will not work. For example, this is supposed to shut off the pump when pressure builds from your float valve in your container, right? And what was happening was this was not shutting off, right? And because it was not shutting off, the pump was pumping like crazy, right? This would shut off, but not this, right? So what I did was I had used the hex screw, and you're probably going to need to buy that from Home Depot, but you have to use a .05 hex screw, or might even lower than that, to adjust that, right, down just a bit. And that was able to get this to shut off the pump, and then the rest of the water pressure from the sink shuts that off. Now it works. I'm just giving you tips, man, because this took me a while to figure out. It took me half a day. All right. Otherwise, everything else is working well right now, and I'm making product water right now. Like I said, 1-to-1 instead of 3-to-1, right? That's what you want. Like I said, the other tip you should really think about it is to get a three-way valve, so that you don't burn through resin when you are changing sediment filters, or carbon blocks, or oral membranes. But the biggest thing here is change the membranes from the Aqualife stock membranes that they send you with this unit to the Dow slash DuPont FlimTechs. They are for real. Like I said, faucet water, 247 TDS, coming out of the membrane prior to the DIs is now 5. Previously, I was getting, I think I was getting 25 to 28, sometimes 30. Okay? Huge investment, but worth it. Do it. All right? I even checked out the Aqualife. I'm not going to buy those Aqualife membranes anymore. Okay? All right, guys. If you like this video and you find it informative, please subscribe and hit the thumbs up button. Later.